You are now live with Dylan Kimlin. Hello everyone, my name is Dylan Kimlin and I'm doing a review of the 2023 pickleball season here in Australia. So for our international viewers or people that are within the Australian scene that haven't really stuck around for too long, this is something to, I guess, take a look at with what has changed, and because there have been some major changes, but also the growth of the sport and where we're going ahead. Things that I'll be covering in this video, because it will be a bit of a longer video than I usually do. I'll essentially be discussing the, I guess, major things that have occurred this year within the Australian pickleball scene, as well as major changes in the rules. I'll be discussing different leagues and tournaments that have occurred this year, and also giving out some accolades for players, groups, clubs, etc. that probably deserve them and no one's talking about them. So I just want to give some people their roses, and then I'll be finishing it off. I've got a bunch of questions from people within the Australian Pickleball Community that just wanted some things answered. So I'll do my best to answer that, and hopefully we can dive into this together and look at a wonderful year of pickleball. Okay, before we get into the, I guess, tournaments and leagues, please ensure you follow my YouTube channel, Live with DK. I also do content on Instagram, and all of my news, which is probably the most important bit, is on my Facebook page, which is Dylan Kimlin Commentary and Broadcasts. I do so much news and information regarding tournaments, where to find the footage, and the streams. And let's talk about that before I get into too much of the information. So if you are someone who hasn't heard my voice or don't know what I look like, probably wondering who's this bald guy on screen right now and why should I be listening to him? It's a very fair question. So as I've said, I'm covering the Australian pickleball scene. So for our viewers that are international, or even I'll talk a little bit about the New Zealand space, but for anyone that's not within Australia, you probably have no idea who I am, and that's cool. My name's Dylan Kimlin, so I commentate probably 90% of the major tournaments here in Australia, or I have this year, and that's including state level, leagues, Australian championships, you name it, I do everything. Small little club tournaments, everything. So I've been involved in just about every major tournament this year. Also director of pickleball at Focus Pickleball Redcliffe, which is, in my opinion, the #1 pickleball location in Australia. We have all these purpose-built courts. We have international visitors constantly, as well as professional players, and major events occur at our venue. So I'm the director there and coach hundreds of people a week, as well as provide a good experience. Our courts are packed all the time, and I think the work we do is fantastic. So besides that, I've also been on the state level, Pickleball Queensland, qualified referee, qualified coach, and just been in the scene for a while now. So keeping all that in mind, if you do believe I'm not entitled to have an opinion on, I guess, the 2023 season, that's okay. You're welcome to close the stream now, or close the video down now. But if you are sticking around, thank you. I do appreciate the support. So let's get into what has changed. Okay, so you got to keep in mind 22 season where we're at. We're just sort of coming out of the COVID space, I suppose. And 2023, pickleball has erupted. Now, anyone that's been in the space for a while now would know that it's just been on an upward trajectory basically since we started. I remember, I was playing before COVID, and the sport was growing at an alarming rate, I might add, but we never expected it to get where we are now. And I'm sure anyone within the state or national bodies, anyone that's been in a club for a while now would agree with that. So we eclipsed 2 records already. So we had the largest tournament in the Southern Hemisphere first, which was the Queensland Pickleball Championships at Morayfield. We then eclipsed that record by beating it again at the Australian Pickleball Championships not that long after. So it goes to show where we're at. The sport is just, it's gone berserk. Tournaments, everyone is playing for sheep stations now. We've gone from little tournaments where you go down, you have a good time, and that's about it. Whereas now we have significant prize money on the table. We're playing at the best venues in the country. We are live streamed to international audiences. We have major sponsors involved. It has suddenly, in 6 or 7 years, it's gone from a niche sport that no one knows about to all of a sudden we have all of this stuff happening. And it's kind of scary when you consider it. I will be doing a bit of a discussion on sort of the culture of the sport, the direction of the sport, where we're going as well, for anyone that's interested in that. So, tournaments and leagues. I think the first thing I want to sort of bring up, Pickleball Australia Seniors. I was fortunate enough to do an event of theirs at the Yeppoon Pickleball Festival. PAS have steadily been growing. I think they're sort of their own little entity, and I'm really happy to see they're doing well. I think if you are involved in that space and you want to get involved in those tournaments, definitely support them. I just wanted to give them a little shout out. I think they've been, like I said, growing along, and from all accounts, from what I've seen, players genuinely enjoy their events. I enjoyed commentating their events. So well done, PAS. I just wanted to bring you guys up first of all. This year we had the introduction of 2 of the major leagues. I mean, they probably, when I say introduction, I guess this was the first 2 big seasons for these 2 guys, or 2 organisations. So we had PPL, or Pacific Pickleball League, and NPL, so National Pickleball League. I commentated for both. Full disclosure, I commentated for all these guys, and I do get paid for it. So, once again, take my opinion with a grain of salt, but this is just someone who's been there, done that, so I'm talking about it. So, PPL had the inclusion of Major League Pickleball Australia, to which events were fantastic. We had some of the best players in Australia duking it out in teams across the country. So we had the Sydney Smash, the Brisbane Breakers, the Melbourne Mavericks, as well as the Gold Coast Glory. And they were sort of the inaugural teams. I went to every event, pretty much, and it was a great time. The Major League Pickleball events, we were lucky enough to have international audiences tune in and see what our players can do. It was a good time. We also introduced rally scoring, and I think Adam and the team at PPL, Sanj, James, Tim, have done an incredible job. They should be proud of themselves. Pat on the back to those guys. And I guess it's interesting because I've had so many people ask, like Dylan, there's all these acronyms, and it's fair enough. Pickleball's gone berserk with the acronyms. I don't know why, but here we are. So you've got PPL and then Major League Pickleball Australia. They're 2 separate things, but they all kind of go in the same event. So the PPL events were a great time. I streamed and commentated those as well. And yeah, from what I saw, the feedback I received, overwhelmingly positive. Major League Pickleball Australia was also in the same boat. It would be nice as we go along into the 2024 season to see those, viewership go up, as well as, I guess, attendance at events. It'd be really cool to actually start getting some home crowds for, let's say, the Mavericks or the Glory or something like that. If we had an event at their home location, to get some home crowds involved, I think that'd be really cool. We had the Melbourne Mavericks. I filmed, broadcasted there at Melbourne, where we did have a bit of a home crowd cheering on the Mavericks, and it was amazing. Like, it was really loud watching it, and that was the first time I've covered an event here in Australia where it's like, this is cool. Like, the crowd they're actually influencing the game. So that was really cool, and I'd love to see that happen more as we go on. Moving on, so NPL, National Pickleball League, they've done a great job. Like, I really do appreciate the work that NPL have done. Got a bit of a different style to PPL. They have made some major announcements this year with, I know they got a former CEO or director of Tennis Australia on board. providing some, advice and whatnot to those guys. And I know their seasons going forward definitely going to be a little bit more singles targeted. So that's really exciting. I can see sort of what the vision is they've got there. But for this year, the MPL events, they have a great vibe. They're always a good time. The MPL team really makes sure that that's the case. You got green plastered everywhere. They got the cool little pickle mascot, and the music's going. It's a really, really fun time to be had. I was fortunate enough to cover several MPL events, and I've got nothing but positive things to say about the MPL team. I know they've just opened the Jar in Melbourne, which is their own venue, and if you are in Melbourne, obviously go down and check those guys out. I haven't had a chance to go down there yet to have a look, but it's on my bucket list. So anyone that's been involved in the space from a management or a venue point of view, or even a club, if you're a president or secretary, whatever, you would know that venues are the hardest things in pickleball. We don't have enough. So for NPL to get their own venue is just props to them. Absolutely fantastic effort. And I look forward to see where the 2024 NPL seasons, go forward. So, yeah. We have the Queensland Pickleball Tour. So I believe this is the second year it's occurred. I commentated majority of the QPT events, including the QPT finals and the QPT awards night, or PAQ awards night. Queensland Pickleball Tour events were good this year. We did see a bit of a change, and this is something I will bring up later on, but our open players definitely dropped off in participation when it comes to the QPT events. Now, why that is probably a couple of reasons, namely, I guess the prizes, money and whatnot's not there for some of the open guys, but I was involved at QPT Redcliffe or QPT Brisbane, and we had a prize pool, but we were fine if the open guys didn't come, because that's only 5% of the player base, and that's someone that goes to every single open event. So it's something has been a bit of a culture shift to really focus on that top 5%, but I think that the bottom, everyone else, we need to look at those guys as well. So I believe QPT, it looks like, I may be incorrect here, but it looks like they're considering a structure change to next season be more involved on the, I guess, not so focused on the open players. And I'm very interested to see how that'll go. We always need a pathway for our players to become open players. So I'm all for it. QPT events also, they go to venues that aren't necessarily, heavily promoted. We saw Townsville. I got to go to Yeppoon. Yeppoon was amazing, by the way. As well as various other venues, which are just, I think the QPT it's a good thing. Next year, I know I saw Harvey Bayer involved, so really cool there. Hope those guys have a good time. And this is what I mean, like, just clubs get a chance to sort of show their stuff. So, yeah, well done to PAQ regarding the QPT events. I think they were pretty solid. We, overall, there's things to be had there, things to go forward. I know they've sort of changed the structure for next season, but it's a pretty standard event now in the calendar. So it's good. We want consistency going forward. We did have a bit of a rule change that impacted tournaments this year that I just wanted to bring up, and it is a significant one. I think this was unanimously loved by everyone. I don't know anyone that doesn't like this rule change. Essentially what occurred was, back in the day, if you were playing and you were standing in the wrong spot and you served the ball or received the ball in the wrong spot, you would be penalised. This has been changed. So this was very prominent with teams that stacked, and I believe it was halfway through the year this rule change came into play. I know the referees were all brushing up on that rule, and as a result, now what occurs is if you are in the wrong position, a referee will come into play and fix you up. So if you're standing in the wrong position and you're about to serve, the referee will say, no, this is the score, should be standing here. I have seen and broadcasted games with the old rule where teams were, it was like an 8-9 game, very close, for a gold medal. And someone would serve from the wrong spot after a timeout, which happened all the time. They lose the point. So a game is dictated via the knowledge of the game. Now, traditionalists, and there's probably some watching right now that have got the comments going like, well, they should know better. You've got a bit of... there's a little bit of truth in that. But I think overall, this has been a positive change because, after a long day playing in a tournament, making a simple mistake like that doesn't necessarily dictate whether you are a good player or whether you should be winning the game. It's just simply a lapse in concentration. That's all it is. So that's probably the one major rule change that I think has changed tournaments in Australia this year. Besides that, we've had some pretty major rule changes in the past couple of years that have really changed things, but this is probably the only one that I would say for 2023 that has had an impact within the Australian pickleball space, and I think everyone's pretty happy with it. Okay. This next one's a delicate one, to which I may annoy some people. But I'm cool with that. So, the culture of the sport is something that I really wanted to bring up, and I'm not even exaggerating. I've had 10 plus people, and these are senior people within the Australian pickleball scene. I'm talking tournament directors, tournament staff, people on state and national level committees, people that run business affiliates, people that run clubs, presidents, secretaries, all of that, professional players, as well as people that are just seriously involved in the sport. And they've all, as I've been to nearly every tournament this year, I hear the same things getting brought up. The same questions are asked. And I think it comes down to the culture of the sport. Now, I'm not getting all, we're not going to have a discussion on, I guess, the social aspect of the sport and where we are there, but I did just want to bring up, I guess, something that we need to realise as a national sport is that we have a very unique opportunity in that the sport is still a baby, it's brand new, and the impacts that you as a club president, I'm a former club president, the impacts as you as a tournament director, you as someone who may be a referee, you as a professional player, you're role models. You are all role models. You will determine in your own way how this sport grows. And I think people forget that. It's a scary concept. Because you think about, we have this weird thing where every other sport in Australia, I think like paddle is probably the only other sport that's sort of in the same page as us. Every other sport is established. They've been around for a long time. They already have an identity. Let's use tennis. Australian Open, Brisbane International, for example. They're events that have legacy. They've been around for ages. Can you, right now, if you're watching at home, can you tell me what the first tournament in Australia was? These are things we haven't established legacy events. I've always said, and I probably have a Queensland bias here, I'm being dead honest. I've always said that the Noosa event, we've always had like a Brisbane doubles event or a River City Classic, as well as an event in Gold Coast. They are your legacy events for the Queensland pickleball space because they were around from day dot. Noosa, Gold Coast Pickleball Association, and BPC, Brisbane Pickleball Club, are three of the oldest clubs in Australia, and they've had those first events. You got to remember, back in the day, we only had up to 4 tournaments in the year. That's a legitimate thing. Whereas now you have, we have major leagues. You've got major tournament groups all fighting each other to get dates locked in, because every weekend has a tournament. It's the weird growth of the sport. So things to consider. So one thing that is constantly getting brought up, and I feel like I don't want to become the bad guy of pickleball, but I am known to call certain groups out. Now, I'm not calling anyone out individually with this video, but this is just more of a cultural discussion. When I say cultural, what do I mean? Steve Rogerson, and I do apologise, Steve, if you're not cool with me bringing you up in this video, but it's a good thing. He's a former Brisbane Pickleball Club president a couple of years ago, and his entire philosophy was based on the culture of the club. He could see the Brisbane Pickleball Club were growing dramatically, and he wanted to ensure that the club's identity was something positive going forward. Put in those infrastructures, policies in place, things to build the club. And that is something that I sort of want to address here. When you think of pickleball, and you individually, what do you think of the sport in Australia? Now, did you think of your local club? Did you think of your local national body? Or did you think of because we may have international viewers watching, or did you think of your state body? Did you think of just you and your family having a hit? All of those answers are correct. But the point I want to make is, I feel like here in Australia, the cultural aspect of the sport has changed. And I don't know if it's a good thing. So any of our players that played several years ago would know that you would go to a tournament and everyone would have dinner together afterwards. The entire tournament. We'd all bunch up, we'd all go together, or have dinner, or have a few beverages, whatever. And it was really on that community. Now, obviously there's the debate that we have 500 people going to a tournament. It's not possible to have that many groups go and have dinner together. Fair enough. I'm not going to disagree with that. But it's the community aspect that I want to talk about. It's the social aspect. Because I feel like players don't rep their clubs anymore. Like back in the day, and when I say back in the day, it's like 2 years ago. It's not that long ago. You would go to tournaments and everyone would rock their club gear. It would be bright colours. Nowadays, it's not the case. Players are sponsored. They would rather represent their paddle company. Players would rather, there's no club pride, which, I don't know, is that something we need to address? Is that something, like maybe it's on the clubs to promote it a bit more? I just wanted to bring it up. It's a discussion point, if you will. Another thing that I want to bring up, and this has been requested, this is probably the one thing that will get people's narky, is when did we become so entitled? That's a legitimate question. You got to remember, we went from, and some of our clubs still do, play with chalked lines, taped lines, portable nets, and the like. We've gone from that to playing in car parks, netball courts, basketball courts, to now playing on tennis courts. We now have an even surface. We now play on wooden indoor surfaces where you don't have the rain to worry about. You don't have, the hot sun. But yet still players complain. All the time. Players complain about tournaments. I see referees abused constantly. Like, we went from this niche sport where everyone loved playing together to, I commentate so many events where I have to physically hold myself back because I see referees getting abused. That is not, we need to stamp that out. That is simply not acceptable. I don't know when this occurred, this culture change. It just happened. And no one stands up for the refs. The refs just cop it. And this is me as someone who is a director of a venue, there's individuals that complain about the venue. You know, like, once again, we went from playing in car parks and basketball courts and bumpy roads with portable nets, hot shots nets from tennis, nets that weren't even high enough, you know, stuff like that. And we suddenly, we're very entitled. We have open players that refuse to play in events anymore unless there's prize money. Now, I'm not going to go down the road of saying they're not allowed to do that. You do you. Honestly, I get it. There's that many events now that pay. Fair enough. If you're good enough to go for it, go for it. But that doesn't mean you should belittle those tournaments, those local clubs that want to try and promote their players, try and promote their venue. The culture of the sport, I don't know how we fix this. Like, unfortunately, I think it's in a downward trend, if I'm being dead honest with you. I feel like we need to try and address it if we can. And I guess I am addressing it. I'm just having those discussions. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. But as someone who's been to just about every tournament, and I've had many people bring this up to me, that they don't know how to address it. If you are one of the people listening right now that complain about tournaments and you have never volunteered at a tournament, you are part of the problem. If you are one of the people that complain about referees and you are not qualified to be a referee, you are part of the problem. Granted, there is leeway there. If you have a referee that has no idea what they're doing, which like I said, I've been to every tournament nearly, I have not seen a referee do anything ridiculously egregious. That does not mean we can abuse the refs. Like, whether they're in the right or wrong, they're human. Mistakes happen. I just feel we need to stamp this part of culture out because, believe it or not, the Australian pickleball space, we are looked upon within our region. I know the New Zealand scene is bustling right now. They are growing, but they look to us. They have 2 teams in the Major League Pickleball Australia event, which I really wish success to. But, you know, they don't want that negative culture impacting their sport. You've got the Asian scene, which is huge right now. The Asian pickleball scene is going ginormous. They are in the same boat. You know, when those players, and I'm going to use Major League Pickleball Australia again, we've got 2 Asian teams coming across. When they come and visit, do they want to see all of this? No. They want to see, wow, this is the gold standard. This is what pickleball should be like. So I just wanted to address that. I just feel like our sports identity is, you know, it's something that we need to look at. Whether I've asked for an integrity board for a long time within the national body, because there are bad apples in our scene that, you know, they should have had some sort of, I guess, sanction. Every other sport in the world, if you abuse a referee, you're in trouble. It's, to me, this is a no-brainer. Like, to me, I'm very much a common sense sort of person. Once again, maybe I'm out of line. Just providing the thoughts of many people that I've spoken to at tournaments that bring this stuff up. Anyway, that's my only negative little bit for this video, promise. Direction of the sport. Okay. I mentioned earlier that our sport is in a constant upward trajectory. We are growing at a ridiculous rate. I don't see that changing. 2024 is somehow going to be bigger than 2023. You know, we already broke our records in 2023. 2024, I think, is going to be the same. We are having ridiculous cash prizes at tournaments next year. I know the players are training hard for it, and I wish them all the best of luck for these events. We have international eyes are constantly on the Australian scene now. Make no mistake about it, we are on the map. We have, PAA had a slew of staff members brought in to sort of act upon this. It's a big deal right now. And I guess it's scary in a way, as someone that not only commentates but operates a venue. It's scary in a way that I'm concerned that we are sprinting before we can crawl. You know, like you think about pickleball in the States, for example, you know, that started way back in the day. It's only now that they're really starting to really get a lot of broadcasting, a lot of eyes on the sport. They had 30 plus years to build it up to where they are now. We've had less than 10. And here we are. And we just got to deal with it. How we deal with it, I guess, is up to you as an individual. Go out and help your local club. Go out and help your state and national body. I'm sure they would love it. Seriously. But the direction of the sport, I think it can only get bigger. Next year, I expect tournament fatigue is probably something we have to bring up. Players, there's going to be too many tournaments. And players almost are going to get sick of playing in too many tournaments. That's just I guess that's the growing pains of the sport, is we are going to see this. We are going to see massive, more venues come into play. You know, I'm not delusional. I know that Redcliffe, you know, we are going to have serious competition just in Brisbane. And that's a good thing. I'm all for it. I want to see the sport succeed. I want to see it grow. I want to see, you know, groups like South Australia, Western Australia, Northern Territory, for example. I want them to blossom. I think Victoria, New South Wales, Tassie have done fantastically well. ACT, admittedly, I haven't done too much with you guys yet. I hope you're doing well. But these are states and territories that I think, you know, will slowly grow as we go along. I think New South Wales were very steady this year. And I think they're following the same trajectory as Queensland. Queensland, in my opinion, right now, due to the fact that we weren't affected too much by the pandemic, that's why our sport grew so quickly in Queensland. Whereas I know Victoria was smashed. We steadily grew, whereas every other state's catching up. And I think Queenslanders, you need to be aware of that. Like, we've sort of held the crown for a little bit. I say we, I'm a Territorian, but anyway. This, you know, those other states, they're hunting. They have some very good players, they have some very good venues, and I imagine fully well that those state championships are going to be incredible to go to. So the direction of the sport, I can only see positive things going forward. The culture of the sport, time will tell on that one. That's the, I guess, heavy-hitting topics for this review finished. Now I'm going to get into something that I want to start up, and it's going to become an annual thing called the Dill Awards. I'm sure you guys can get the joke there, but essentially I just want to give certain players, certain venues, certain organisations just a bit of, you know, they get their roses, they get a bit of a pat on the back. I feel it's a really tough one giving awards out. I know our state and national bodies, they would probably love to be able to give best players and best venues and best and all of that, but they're in a really awkward spot because there's always someone that will complain if they do all of that. So I've decided to give out just a thank you. That's all it is, just a well done to various individuals across our national sport, because I feel that these individuals are, you know, well worthy of it. But the first one I'm starting with isn't a individual, it's a venue. And I just wanted to give, in my opinion, just the best venue award in Australia. Now, keeping in mind, obviously Director of focus Redcliffe. I have excluded Redcliffe from this discussion. That would be a massive breach and a conflict of interest, so they're not even relevant. I've been to many venues. I've probably been to the most amount of tournaments this year in the country out of everyone. I mean, there might be a referee or a tournament director or staff member that may have beat me in that regard. I've probably been more to the players than the players. Yeah. So, in saying that, these are all venues that I've been to. If your venue doesn't get called out, there's a chance I haven't been there yet. But I think, hands down, the best venue I've been to this year is the Yeppoon Pickleball Club, or Yeppoon Pickleball. Their venue was insane. I know the team there and the committee have really put together an incredible place to play pickleball. The Yeppoon Pickleball Festival was an absolutely amazing experience, and I would recommend considering it should they decide to do it again in 2024. The courts are top notch. You know, you got fully fenced off courts, great surface, beaches right there, as well as the Yeppoon community. The festival had one weekend was a Pickleball Australia Seniors event. The next weekend was a Queensland Pickleball Tour event. You know, people travel around the country for it. I talked about the cultural things earlier. Yeppoon did really well in that regard. So we had constant social events. There was coaching going on from some of the best coaches in the country, as well as just a lot of social events outside of pickleball for players to go to, and that was amazing. So well done, Yeppoon. I think fully deserved of this award, and I look forward to see how the festival will go in 2024. Our next Still award is the Best Tournament Director. Now, I've tried to give awards of things that I'm experienced in. Now, I never critique another coach. I never critique another referee. And I never critique something that I have no knowledge in. And that's just across life. That's not even relevant to pickleball. Because I'm not a professional in that regard. I'm not experienced in that regard. So all of the awards that we're talking about today, I believe either through my experience within the sport or what I do professionally within the sport, I feel like I have a bit of a right to talk about it. I've been a tournament director for many events. So when I see someone excel, they deserve to be praised. Simple as that. In my opinion, Matthew Hort is the top director in the country for tournaments. There's no doubt about it, in my opinion. He did the Queensland Pickleball Championships, as well as, I believe he did APC, as well as multiple other huge events, big prize money events. And his events are smooth. You know what you're getting with them. All the players are constantly kept up to date. He does it in a manner that is professional but still light-hearted, I guess. Like, it's not super serious, but everyone knows it's a serious event. It's just the way he conducts himself. He's a true professional. And his events are an absolute pleasure to work in. So, if you are looking for if you're a new tournament group or a new tournament director, new someone in the space that wants to get involved, if you need advice, I don't even know if he would offer it. I do apologise, by the way, if you're about to get flooded with emails. But this gentleman is the gold standard, and he has the accolades to back it up. So, yeah, well done. Still Award is it's a entire state or territory, and it's the up and coming award. So I mentioned earlier that I believe Queensland and New South Wales are kind of vying for a premier spot, but I wanted to give a big shout out. Now, Tasmania, their pickleball space is doing really well, and they were very close to winning this. But I actually wanted to give a big shout out to the Victorian pickleball scene. And as such, I believe they've got the up and coming state award, or territory award. Their scene is blossoming before our very eyes. To the other states and territories, this is nothing against you. I just wanted to give some praise to the Victorian players and their clubs and committee. Everyone knows Melbourne being the sporting capital of Australia. It was inevitable for Victoria to get involved in pickleball eventually. I did mention earlier there was that global event that occurred which did negatively impact the pickleball scene there, but they are doing tremendously well. Make no mistake about it, I believe that scene will become a huge contender in pickleball in years to come. We are seeing players, they already have, they've got the Melbourne Mavericks, they've already got their own team, but I'm talking about just clubs. Victorians love sport. We know that. We know that they are going to take this crazy. They already have the Australian Open for tennis. We're going to get all the tennis guys come across. I mentioned earlier, people like the NPL are based in Melbourne. Victoria, I think they are the ones to watch if you are in the local Victorian scene. Well done to our club presidents, club committee members in the Victorian scene. I'm excited to see what you will produce in the years to come. To our Victorian committee members, I haven't even met some of you guys. Well done. I'm lucky enough to be doing the Victorian Open next year, and I'm very excited. I think Victoria is that's going to be the next big boom in pickleball in Australia. It's going to come from there. So, fantastic job. Next one, relevant to tournaments, once more, is the most valuable tournament staff member. These are the people, they are the unsung heroes of the pickleball scene. And I say pickleball scene because that's international. Doesn't matter where you play. These people barely get recognition, they barely get respect, and they are the entire reason that you can play in a tournament. Honestly, the next time you go to a tournament, you should be thanking the people that are doing the little data entry, putting the scores in. They're the reason you can go to your next semi-final. They're the ones that sit back. They can't play, but they ensure that your event goes ahead. And there's one individual that I feel she constantly puts herself second. She always puts the players of the tournament first, and I never see her get praised. Once again, cultural thing, keep bringing it up. And that's Kerry Gray. So Kerry has done many events that I've been to. Most notably, I want to really thank her for the QPT finals recently. She was under immense pressure and got the job done. This is the kind of pressure that only if you've been a tournament director, if you have had hundreds of people come up to you wondering when their next game's going to start, wondering why you've got a 20-minute delay, it's a pressure that no one will ever know unless you've been in that position. Kerry, you do incredible work, and I just wanted to thank you for it. I know our players in Queensland especially probably don't realise how much work you do. There are so many scorers, data entry people, runners, people that go and do the taping, the volunteers at the events that I try and praise every single time I go live, because I know you guys don't get any recognition. and I just wanted to thank you all. Seriously, as someone who works at all of these tournaments, I see how hard you all work, and yeah, thank you so much. My final Dill Award for the 2023 Australian Pickleball Review is the Most Improved Player. I mentioned earlier, I don't want to go too deep on the player accolades. I believe other groups should be doing that. I'm just simply someone that goes to tournaments and watches them. This individual isn't an open player, but has absolutely dominated in 2023, hence the most improved. From success internationally, crazy levels of success domestically. Keeping in mind, had a major injury this year, came back and dominated. She has featured on many of my broadcasts in gold medal situations for both singles and doubles, and should get some praise. It's simple as that. And that's Anita Smith. She has, I think she's had a dominant 2023, and her trophy cabinet will go to prove it. She, like I said, she's just won everything. Unfortunately, there's probably some of you guys watching right now who have no idea who I'm talking about, and that kind of goes to show the growth of the sport, I guess, space that we're in that we have these players that are elite in their field that they just don't get as much showtime, I guess, as some others. But as someone who's been to all these tournaments and seen how you've thrived, Anita, you've been incredible. And you deserve a clap. You deserve all the gold medals that you've won, both domestically and internationally. And I think you are, you're an absolute gun in the divisions you play, and should be one to watch. Simple as that. So well done. The final segment of my 2023 Australian Pickleball Review will be actually getting questions from the crowd. So I try my best to... It's not about me. It's about what you guys want. And as I mentioned throughout multiple times throughout this review, this is a lot of things that people have brought up within the space that wanted me to address. This last bit's a bit of fun. I asked people from across the country to give me some questions that they would like answered in my best possible way. Now, these are people from every point of the spectrum. So we'll see what happens. I haven't really looked into these answers. A lot of them are just off the cuff. I feel like that's the best way to answer it. So my first questionee, is that the right terminology? First person asking a question is none other than professional player, the captain of the Gold Coast Glory, Sarah Burr. And her question is, what do you think is the most underrated shot in pickleball? Okay, it's a good question. And I can guess why Sarah has asked. I refer to her as the queen of the reset for a reason. I actually think there's 3 really underrated shots in pickleball, but I'll address resetting as one of them. I'm not a 5.0 player. I don't pretend I am. There's definitely a lot of players that pretend they are, but we won't go there. But I believe, as someone who basically covers all the open events, or majority of them, that good players that can reset, it's a thing of beauty to watch. As someone who, I'm a bit old school, I guess, a little bit more defensive minded. What gets me, as a viewer, what gets you hyped up? What gets you pumped up when you watch a play in any sport? For me, personally, it's when you see a defensive play transition to an offensive play. So if someone can reset the ball, dig out, really hard shot at the feet, or an absolute smash, mishole, get it a safe return, and then capitalize and take the point, to me that is incredible. Like, it's peak pickleball. So I would probably say the reset. But now I'm going to go really underrated, and this is something I actually coach my newer players and my intermediate players at Focus, which is the serve. Now, a couple of years ago, we had the chainsaw serve and the spin serve, and serving was really, it was heavily focused. Players spent a lot of time learning these sort of gimmicky serves to try and get an edge on their opposition. But I feel like serving, in Australia anyway, is not as relevant. People just get the ball in. There's nothing wrong with that. But in singles especially, serve should be a weapon. You want to mess up your opposition to be able to set up yourself for the next play. And that follows on to my third underrated shot, which is a return. I think a lot of the pro players definitely focus on this. They don't want to be giving a juicy return to someone who's a renowned driver. But for you, beginner players, intermediate players, people that want to get involved in tournaments, your returning has to be a point of focus going forward. You don't want to be giving opposition easy returns. And as such, this is something that we never drill. Never. But it's like an absolutely critical shot in the game, because it sets up the next set of plays. So yeah, resets, your serving, especially in singles, and your returning would be my most underrated shots in pickleball. My next question from the crowd is from an individual that quickly blossomed into popularity this year, providing top-notch apparel to your feet. It's none other than the sock man himself, Brad Kluss from Pickle Socks. Brad has been playing for a long time and is dominant in the divisions he plays. He's also a top-notch bloke. And I know he is beloved within the pickleball community. So reach out to Brad and let's see what his question is. Oh, great, it's a long one. Here we go. Why do tournament administrators not run singles events prior to any doubles? As a singles player, I feel it's important to be firing fresh on court rather than after a long day's session of doubles. It's a good question. Now, as someone who, I'm going to use my own experiences. As someone who I run a advanced, league at Redcliffe, where we do singles, skinny singles, and doubles in the same session. Yes, you heard that right. And yes, it works very well. The reason being is our players wanted to be able to play all three within the same session in a competitive environment. Now, the first thing that got brought up, because I did doubles first, and the first week, the feedback was unanimous just about. That kind of contradicts itself, but anyway. A lot of people wanted to have singles first for this exact reason. The players were tired after their doubles games. They didn't want to slog it out during singles afterwards. It's a very fair question, especially when you play all three. If you do the holy trinity or the trifecta of singles, gendered doubles, and mixed doubles, those singles are brutal. I mean, I've been to some events where you see players cramping up and they've only played doubles. I say only, it's a great effort, but they've still got singles to go and their body is physically seizing up on them. Now, I'm not a physio or anything like that. I don't try to pretend that I know why the body does it if you do doubles first. But I know a lot of people, and Brad's probably not the only one that says this, a lot of people do prefer to do singles first. And I have to say, it's not all tournaments that do this, but there are tournaments now that do singles first. Typically Friday is your first, that's your singles day, Friday now. in the last little while that's started to become a common thing. For tournament directors or groups that want to start scheduling events, I would recommend doing singles first. That's just, as a former tournament director myself, singles shouldn't be an afterthought. It is a very good starting event because it's individually focused. Let the players play individually, do their own thing, get locked in, so that come doubles time, they've already had a bit of a warm up, and those specialist singles players can try to dominate before they're tired. To me, it's a win-win. Whether it suits your scheduling going forward, I would seriously consider doing singles first, just from the feedback I've received from my own players at my own club. But as we can see, prominent people in the community are also asking for this. My third question from the crowd is from an award-winning referee, voted upon via Pickleball Association Queensland as the number one referee in the state, from Harvey Bay herself, none other than Kylie Dunn. Now, I think I wanted to get a question from Kylie because she sees things that a lot of players wouldn't think about. So, whether it's from a technical point of view or a tournament point of view, I was very intrigued to see. She might ask a question that's from that kettle of fish. Let's have a look. No, that's not happened at all. Kylie has straight up stitched me up. Thank you, Kylie. Please do your vocal warm-ups to get you ready for commentating. So, I've had people ask me about commentating. People want to get in the booth, and not everyone can do it. You're watching something and talking about that said something is a bit harder than people may realise. But I went to the Australian Radio School this year, and Sean and the team, if you're ever looking to get into vocal work, I cannot recommend them enough. Incredible people, and I learned so much. Just the psychology of radio, it's crazy, just what comes into it. But anyway, one thing I learned, and this is relevant to all you fellas out there, Australian men, and ladies watching may or may not agree heavily with this, but we tend to mumble. I don't know why. I believe it's because the example I was given at radio school was that we talk with our mouths clips. We don't open our mouths as much, so we mumble. We don't pronounce, and this is something for commentary that I had to be wary of. So one of the exercises I do, usually when I'm driving to an event, and up and coming commentators, something I would highly recommend doing. This is just a good habit, especially men, Australian men. What we do is we yawn. So when I'm driving, I do all these exercises when I'm driving, by the way. I don't do them when I'm at the venue because I look ridiculous. But essentially when I'm driving, I'm deliberately trying to open my mouth up. Well, I almost, when we play, you stretch, right? Do all the stretches, good to go. I need to stretch my jaw. I know that sounds ridiculous, and fair enough, but I actually deliberately yawn. Try to yawn. The other thing I do is one of the worst things that can happen when you commentate is your tongue gets fat. Now, what I mean by that is you get tongue-tied. We've all been there, where words just are hard to pronounce. So I actually need to warm that up as well. So it's like, what I do is, a very simple one is just go along, and it's like e e o o o, and then ba ba b bo bo boo. Go all the way up to the alphabet, And the idea being is that you're just rolling the tongue, getting those free-forming words to go. Sure, there's singers or people who do vocal work watching this that would know what I'm talking about. But that's pretty much it. Another thing that I do, and this is a bit of a tradition now, is I actually try and get in the zone. Now, for people that are watching that have done, I guess, sports psychology, would sort of understand what I'm referring to. So some people try to cool down. They don't want to be hyped up. You know, if you're a player, you want to be nice and calm, get in that flow state, ready to go. Other people try the opposite. They want to fire up. They want to, let's go. I try and fire up because if I'm, if I'm very relaxed, welcome to Smooth FM. This is Dylan Kimlin. We're going to go through and listen to some nice jazz. That's not suitable for commentary. And I have been told that sometimes my commentary is a little bit too relaxed, and that's good feedback. I appreciate it. So what I do now, and something I've done recently, is I will listen to pump up music before a game. And the idea being is I want to get, hyped up so that I can hype the event up. It's something I've started doing recently. But yeah, hopefully that answers some of your questions. And anyone that wants to get into commentary, by the way, please reach out. I'm happy to help anyone. My next question from the crowd is a gentleman from Australian Pickleball. Absolutely tremendous bloke. Like, honestly, the how do I put it? The moral compass from this gentleman and his partner, they are some of the best people in pickleball. I went through a really tough time this year, like mentally. Went through a really, really tough time. And this gentleman was here to ensure that I got through it. I was actually at a tournament, a pretty major one of that. So, hands down one of the best, like I said, best people in pickleball. His name is Cale Hodgson. Has a Facebook group called Cale's Kitchen, where I know he does a bunch of coaching and helps the Australian pickleball space. I've chucked up his pages and stuff, and also all of the other guys that have, other guys and girls that have got, various team names or individuals, whatever. I've chucked up their details. Go and chuck them a follow if you haven't. They do amazing stuff. But Cale's question. Okay. When streaming, you, so me, are exposed to view and watch some of the best plays from a variety of players. Do you see strategies and play styles to incorporate them in your own game? Not so much me. I see strategies and play styles that I incorporate into my coaching with my beginners and intermediates though. I'm not an advanced coach. There's people that do that. But for my beginners and intermediates, I generally I see things on the courts that, I let them know about what I've seen, what I've covered. And I've said this multiple times throughout the year, that from a doubles perspective, engendered. So you've got men's doubles and women's doubles. Completely different play styles in the open field. The women are way more aggressive, very fiery, a lot more drives, a lot more smashes, volley battles, etc. The ladies are just out for blood, and it's great entertainment. Like, it's fiery pickleball. Whereas the men are very slow and methodical, a lot more dinking, waiting for that pop up to put away, and you will typically see longer rallies with the gentlemen. And this isn't just a one-off. This is nearly every event I cover with the open category. You will see this. Mixed, however, it's always interesting because it swaps. The ladies play a lot more passively and the gentlemen try and take more of the court. I don't know. Yeah, just what I see. Single strategies, both genders pretty similar. Obviously, the ex-tennis players tend to do quite well. But the one thing I love to see is you see all the different racket sports come into play. I've already mentioned in many of my broadcasts that a lot of the ex-badminton players have some of the hardest smashes in pickleball. The ex-tennis players obviously drive the ball very well. Squash players get ridiculous spin on the ball. It's a wide variety of strategies and tactics that come into play that it's just fascinating for someone who likes that element of the sport. But different strategies... Has anything really changed this last... I think this year we definitely saw a lot more switching. Like the hand movements behind the back just became very prominent this year in Australia. It's probably the biggest... I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but it became the norm. So we weren't doing it, and then all of a sudden, yep, we're switching on the return. It suddenly became relevant, and now it's common. So that's probably the biggest strategy change that I've probably seen. Besides that, Ernies and ATPs are now just common. Probably fast hands at the net became more prominent. Players like Lucas Pascoe, for example, just lightning fast hands, initiating that fast play. Yeah. Now, I don't incorporate it in my game to sort of answer your question, Carol, because I'm not good enough. But these are things that I've seen in changes in just general play style. I will say Australia has gotten faster. It's across the board. That's not just open. And I think it's just pickleball in general. From what I've seen from other broadcasts, the game has sped up. Now, you could argue ball technology, paddle technology has changed that warrants this. Could be that we're getting players from other sports come along that have high levels of prowess with driving, volleying, rah-de-rah-de-rah. But a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago, it was dinking. Everyone would dink, trying to out-dink your opposition. That's not the case as much. Players that, I think of like Summer Dalabona, for example. I wouldn't go and call her a banger, but she rips the ball hard. Michaela Hayet's another player. Those players absolutely thump the ball, and they're that good at it that dinking doesn't become as much of a priority. So, yeah, I think the play styles have changed. It'll obviously change again next year as sort of more players come into the fold. But for my own play style, I haven't really changed my play style, if I'm being that honest, Kale. I'm probably a bit of a relic with how I play. Like I mentioned earlier with Sarah's question, I play a lot more defensively. And that's probably not the norm. As I just mentioned, everyone plays a lot faster now. So hopefully that answers your question. My next question for the crowd comes from a gentleman who I've had a pleasure of playing with, pleasure with coaching. I know he's a coach himself, so we talk about coaching strategies, etc. Gentleman from Victoria, he's now out that way now, by the name of Mal Williams, or Malcolm. Everyone knows him as Mal. I believe he's at Drysdale, the new location out that way. Incredible bloke, and I know the Victorian space is in good hands when you have people like that involved. So shout out to Mal. Hope you're doing well, mate. He has asked for his question. Very simple one. The funniest point you saw this year. It's a good question. I've seen so much crazy stuff happen on court this year. Like, it gets to a point where everything sort of blends into one, I suppose. I have seen funny things like the wind being so strong the nets fall over. I've had my gazebo roll into the court mid-rally. I've had just all sorts of crazy environmental stuff come into play whilst commentating. I remember doing, I believe it was a 6.0 Open at the very start of this year, and mid-commentary, there was a typhoon, or like it was a massive storm hit. So in the footage, all you can see is, like, I'm commentating, and all you can see is everyone sprinting because it's just sideways rain. And that was in the middle of a rally. So that was funny. But funniest point I've seen various things where I'm not going to name certain individuals, but I've seen some paddles get thrown very long distances. I have seen paddles broken. I've seen vulgar gestures from individuals to each other. I have seen and heard all manner of funny things said from players to each other. Heard referees say things to players. It all becomes in the heat of it, and it's part of the vibe, you know. I've had kids that don't even watch pickleball in the middle of a rally just jump in and ask to do commentating just because they thought it was cool. Yeah, just non-stop crazy stuff has occurred, and this is all while I'm commentating. You guys probably don't even realize it's happening. I've had to tell off so many people who might be talking about a raunchy night out they've had or something, and they're within 2 meters of a microphone. It's like, guys, go away. I'm trying to, it's, 10:10 right now. I don't want to hear about what you've been up to. Go CG. Yeah, anyway. So the point I'm making is there's a lot of funny things that occur on court. So I can't give you an exact example, but instead I give you a bundle, and hopefully that answers your question, Mel. My next question from the crowd, from a gentleman that is from Pickleball Australia, who I work relatively close with, does basically every thumbnail for every tournament on the PAA YouTube channel. One of the hardest working people in the Australian pickleball scene, and once again he deserves an award in his own right. It is Paul Chambers. So Paul has asked me, where were the best crowds / atmosphere, and which tournament looked after you and other players the best with food and drinks, etc. So, the best atmosphere, I mentioned it earlier with the Melbourne Mavericks at Melbourne. I also said NPL have a great vibe. Yeppoon Pickleball Festival was fantastic with just the entire event. But best atmosphere, I have to say, and it wasn't this year, but the best atmosphere I've had across the board would have been Queensland Pickleball Championships last year. And it was a special one for me because it was the first event that I started broadcasting. Gordon and I co-commentated that, and it was really fun. But the atmosphere was electric. We had huge crowds around the courts. It was raining. It was just a wild time, and it was electric. The crowd was really into it. That was a very fun tournament to be commentating, and I learnt a lot from it. So I'd probably go with that one. Does anything else ring a bell? The events at Blacktown were good. PPL Sydney and APC. A lot of people. So there was every game was getting watched, just about. So they were good. Definitely need a bit of a shout out for those guys. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. And for the other part of your question, which tournament looked after me the best, and other players with food and drinks? I immediately think of NPL. They always have a wide variety of food and drinks available, always ensure that I get fed. Most of you guys don't realise it, but when I commentate events, anywhere between a 12 to 16 hour day typically, and I typically talk for about 8 to 10 hours of that time. Majority of that, I do not get a break. And that's part of the job. It is what it is. But it's very common that I only eat once during an event. I have to take my own little nuts and stuff to keep me going. So for events that do look after me, it is noticeable. But I'm irrelevant. I'd rather the players get looked after. So events that I've been to that there's always good food available. I mean, the QPT events pretty much always have food. It's pretty much guaranteed. Like I mentioned, the Blacktown events. It was a big shopping centre right across the road, so there was no excuse to not have food. For me, I didn't have time to get it, so it's different, but for other players, they could. The BDO events, Brisbane Pickleball Club. They're little tournaments, they're your little club events, but they always put a feed on. Part of your registration or whatever is that they just chuck food on for everyone. I remember one of the events this year, they bought Powerade for everyone. There was drinks and food and it was a good experience. So BPC definitely get an honourable mention because I think they go a bit above and beyond to ensure that the players get a good, they get treated well. Referees. I noticed that lately, well, when I say lately, within the last 8 months, tournaments are trying to actively do more to help referees, give them a dedicated spot to review games, etc. Give them food, shade, give them a break, drinks, etc. That is slowly becoming more common throughout the Australian tournament space, and I'm very happy to see that. That's a very good thing. So that's just a general pat on the back to everyone. My next question from the crowd is from a sponsor. So someone who has sponsored a lot of tournaments this year, plays pickleball religiously, has recently sponsored essentially pickleball Christmas party, lives and breathes for the sport. It is the man from Mismo himself, Brett Blackmore. I have nothing but positive things to say about this person. Brett genuinely cares about the sport. He cares about the people in the sport, and his product is incredible. That's why I'm more than happy to promote it. What they do from a recovery point of view, I use it personally. So, yeah, go and check them out. Brett's question: can you share your most memorable moment from the 2023 tournaments? There's a couple of things that come to mind. NPL Sydney, one of the best men's singles games I saw between Mitchell Hargraves, Alex Fairbanks. Fairbanks dug really deep, and I think he came out with a victory. That was memorable. He played out of his skin. Diane Julie. Was it Diane Julie? Di Cameron, Julie Maguire. This year, in one of the Brisbane events, were 10-0 down and came back to win it. That was there. PPL Melbourne. Aaron Blitz, backhand drive down the line in a dream breaker. So that's where each player from the team has to play a singles, like play a set of singles games, or singles points rather. Every point's critical. But I remember Aaron getting a amazing drive and just firing everyone up. His team was, yeah, they were pumped up from that. That was a memorable moment. We also had trying to think of some Masters memorable moments that I covered. I mentioned Anita earlier. I think QPT Gold Coast. Yeah, it wasn't QPT Finals, it was QPT Gold Coast. Same venue though, but Anita won singles and then proceeded to do the next gold medal match with doubles. I think. She back to back, and I'm pretty sure she won both. Yeah. Incredible. Any gentlemen memorable moments from the Masters? Here's a nice one. It was PPL Melbourne. And I had a person, I won't say what her name is, but if you are watching this, hello, if you remember our conversation. A lady who has gone through some really rough times medically this year, who came up to me at the event. She's from Melbourne, and said to me in person that she, whilst going through a lot of her medical stuff, would watch all of the streams, and that my streams helped her get through all of this. I know, some people think I'm tough and burly or whatever, but she doesn't know it, but I may or may not have walked away from that conversation with tears in my eyes. Considering I started this business, the first year I did it basically for free, and it was to promote the players, promote the clubs, and promote the Australian pickleball scene. I didn't realise I would have such an impact on people. So that there would probably be my most memorable moment, and it wasn't even on court. That was purely a conversation. Yeah, that was a nice moment, and I hope you're doing well. My final question from the crowd is from the New Zealand pickleball space. So this person I've had quite a lot of conversations with lately is one of the tournament organisers. So this is a question from a tournament organiser for the Wellington Cup. So thankfully, early February next year, I'll be travelling to Wellington to promote the New Zealand pickleball scene, and I'm very excited. I will be watching that scene with great interest. I hope the players over there are doing well. I was fortunate enough to meet a bunch of the players at the Queensland Pickleball Championships and the Australian Pickleball Championships this year. Tremendous group of people, lovely, very nice, and they can all play pickleball very well. So the person that has asked my last question is Paula Duffy, and I look forward to catching up with you soon, Paula. Paula's question: we have 2 Kiwi captains in the Major League Pickleball Australia, so MLPA announced all of these new teams, and 2 of them are from New Zealand, 2 of them are from Asia, as I mentioned earlier. And hopefully some more Kiwi players. How do you think this will have an impact on the New Zealand scene? I can only see positives. Yeah, it's only a good thing. For starters, it gives more limelight on the New Zealand space. I know you guys have an event for a Major League Pickleball Australia event there in 2024. That's amazing. You also have 2 premier captains representing your region. Also amazing. I'm very curious, especially with the MLPA. 2023 we only had 4 teams, whereas 2024 we have so many more teams. We have a huge pool of teams. I actually think the 2 New Zealand teams will have a bit of a... They're representing an entire nation. Same with the 2 teams from Southeast Asia. They're representing a lot of people. So those guys will probably get more of a cult following, if you will. Whereas the Australian sides, you know, there's like Southeast Queensland, there's a bunch of teams, and they may struggle to get a following in comparison to someone like the New Zealand teams, which is cool. If I've obviously doing all the commentating for the MLPA events, I have talked to a lot of the players regarding 2024 and sort of how they're marketing themselves, how they are marketing their teams, etc. You know, the New Zealand teams should be really pushing, you know, that home advantage for that New Zealand event. Should really be, they want a big crowd there. Both teams want a big crowd there to back them up. So hopefully it works in the favour of the New Zealand pickleball space. I can't, once again, I can't think of any negatives for it. It's just more exposure. That's what it comes down to. Purely more exposure. More eyes on the New Zealand pickleball scene. We now have Australian eyes on the New Zealand pickleball scene. We now have players from Asia on eyes on the New Zealand pickleball scene. You know, like, I'm traveling across to Wellington. I know you've got a ton of like solid players coming across to Wellington. Some of our best referees are coming across to the Wellington Cup. And that's just all experience. And I think the New Zealand space will grow. It will grow, and it's similar, probably like I mentioned Victoria earlier. It's probably in the same boat. Like, you guys will form your own identity. You'll quickly blossom because the sport's gone berserk everywhere, and you'll find superstars. You've already got superstars. So the more of that, the more exposure you get, the more superstars you get. It's a snowball effect. So only positives. I do very much look forward to coming to the Wellington event. And if you are interested in travelling to a pickleball tournament, go and look up the Wellington Pickleball Cup. It's going to be a good time. And that will do for my 2023 Australian Pickleball review. Fair bit of content here. I've been filming for close to 6 hours. Just talking. And that's something that I think our sport here in Australia, there's a lot to talk about. I know I've been approached to start up a bit of a podcast, which it's in the pipeline. But these are just my thoughts. I know I did get into some relatively heavy topics for this review, but they're all just discussion points. If you disagree with me, that's cool. Straight up. Okay, these are just spurring discussion. The questions were great. Thank you so much for everyone that sent those through. For our Dill Awards recipients, like I said, it's just a thank you. Maybe 2024 I can get one of the many people that I got questions from that may or may not sponsor events can sponsor the Dill Awards. But thank you so much for watching. As I said earlier, follow my socials, YouTube channel, Instagram, but mainly my Facebook for all of the news on the streaming within Australia. 2024 is going to be wild. It's a big year. It's nuts for the Australian pickleball space and the New Zealand pickleball space, as we just mentioned. So thank you all so much for watching. I wish you all have a pleasant end of 2023, and I look forward to seeing you all on the courts and behind the camera rather than in front of it like I am now. So thank you.